Good morning and hi, my name is Nur Amira. So today we will have a discussion about the impact of COVID-19 to the tourism sector in the Malaysian economy. First and foremost, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Nur Amira binti Othman. Okay, let's move to the main topic of this discussion. As we all know, one of the industry that has grown to form the foundation of the nation economy is tourism. A nation won't develop more quickly if its economy isn't growing faster. In addition, tourism can be defined as a social, cultural, and economic activity in which people visit places that are not in their usual environments for leisure, business, or professional purposes. The ability to constantly adapt to consumer demand makes the tourism sector one of the most unique of all tourism-related industries. In addition, Malaysia's tourism industry has grown to be the main contributor to the nation's economy. But in 2020, when COVID-19 is made public, we are all taken aback. As a result, the government implemented a movement control order MCO which compelled numbers of industry, including the tourism sector, to shut down. The COVID-19 problem may have long-lasting implications on the tourism industry. Aside from that, COVID-19 has the biggest negative effects on the tourism industry. Tourism is one of the industry most negatively impacted by COVID-19 in terms of direct and indirect economic effects and losses.
Hello, my name is Farah Wahidah binti Abdul Rasid. Before I start our literature review, do you know that United States of America was a country with highest COVID-19 cases and deaths recorded with 103,151,843 cases and 122,1725 deaths? Now, I'll move to the first literature review. We have the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on tourism business in Vietnam. Under this article, it was stated that Nguyen Tuan anticipated that 5,605,865 tourists would visit Chanto in 2020. However, 36.8% decrease from the previous year and 60.9% decrease from the year plan. There were 2,020,145 accommodation tourists, a 32.8% decrease from 2019. Now, this graph is regarding tourist attraction that stopped doing business during the COVID-19. The Chanto City Department of Culture, Sport and Tourism report that company revenue has dropped significantly from 2019. Travel agencies 90%, restaurants 60 to 90%, and hotels 50 to 90%. Next, through the findings, respondents said that Chanto outbreak nearly crippled its tourism industry. 63% of Chanto businesses closed, while 16% reduced operation and staffed by 14%. 7% of businesses closed due to finance issue. Now, let's move to the next literature review. We have the impact of COVID-19 on the travel and tourism industry worldwide. To begin with, because tourism depends on season and outside factor, it is challenging to assess a single factor impact across 53 years. This study examined global virus outbreaks since 1980 to predict how COVID-19 will affect tourism. We can see through the chart, H1N1 was dominating the chart for being the highest infection case and death, followed by COVID-19. The next figure demonstrates how COVID-19 affected tourism investment internationally. Under scenario 1, global travel and tourism capital investment will drop by $362.9 USD. Scenario 2 expect a 1989 or 1990 level fall in travel and tourism capital investment. Scenario 3 losses $1.1 trillion in travel and tourism capital investment. The literature was about COVID-19 pandemic impact on tourism in Poland. Figure given shows that when international flights stopped, there was a big drop in all air traffic in Poland. And based on the chart, we can say that this drop is about 80 to 90% compared to the same time last year. And because of this drop, Poland stopped having both international and domestic flights in March 2020. Proceed to the next data. Between 18 and 22% of the total number of rooms were available in Poland City, and Tricity was the only agglomeration below 20%. The highest one was observed in Warsaw and Wrocław, which may have been a consequence of the significant administrative importance of the first city. And STR reported a 70% decline in Polish hotel occupancy compared to last year.
Thank you, Farah Wahidah. Now let's discover the next literature review entitled The Impact of COVID-19 on the China Tourism Industry. To begin with, impact of COVID-19 on investment, which have resulted in restored investment drops 86%, housing and rail transport 57%, entertainment and commerce service 49%, and air transport 43%. The steep drop in investment in these industries will hurt their capacity and profitability in the coming years. slowing their recovery. Restaurants are down 46%, trade services, rail transport, air transport, housing and entertainment all down over 20%. Tourism policy may help this sector's recovery. Next, impact of COVID-19 on international trade. Export-import ratio are commercial. Since the world market sets the import price, export prices enhance trade terms. No control reduces labor supply and productivity more, rising export prices and trade terms. Consumptions and investment decline 10%. In no control and roughly 30% in prevention and control. Active tourism lowers harm. Both restrict inbound tourism. The Chinese government's active approach works due to overseas travel limitation due to uncontrolled COVID-19 cases in other nations.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nuradillah binti Japri. I will continue with the discussion on microeconomic theory towards the impact of COVID-19 on each of our chosen countries. In this picture, it shows the low health pains versus high economic pains in Vietnam. There, the infection has been spreading since the middle of April of 2020. Meanwhile, the economy is suffering because GDP dropped to 0.36% in the second quarter of 2020. According to the article, the decline in Vietnam's tourism sector contributed to the country's decline in GDP. This is due to the fact that tourism sector generates revenue for the country. The lower the demand for tourism, the lower the country's income. Next, let's move to the world side. National income will have a big impact if the capital investment is declined, which happened during the COVID-19. Gross national income in 2020 was 11038 US dollar, a decrease from 11496 in 2019. However, after the end of 2020, some countries will be able to conduct business as usual with some rules or SOP that must be followed, such as wearing a mask. In 2021, the GNI worldwide was increased with 12023 US dollars since the economic activities started to run like before. According to United Nations data, Poland's population in 2023 was 37.7 million, which made the unemployment rate increase during COVID-19, with the highest rate being 6.3% in December 2020. Since the lockdown was imposed in Poland, the tourism sector as well as all other sectors has been temporarily closed. After they were able to resume normal operations, more unemployment occurred because companies needed to recover the cost of paying employee salaries. When there were no tourists during the pandemic, the tourism industry profit fell and layoffs were required. For the next country, the chart showed the percentage of domestic tourists and travel in China has dropped in the first half of 2020 with 43%, and the forecasted percentage loss for the whole year 2020 was 62%. The number of domestic tourists, also known as demand, is expected to fall throughout the year as a result of some countries, including China, declaring a lockdown to prevent the spread of the virus. The decline in tourism demand has undoubtedly reduced domestic tourism revenue. Domestic tourism revenue was 77% in the first half of 2020, but is expected to fall to 52% in the second half.
Hi, my name is Asha Safia from MBA 1115D, matrix number 2008333574. I will explain what the data that is related to our issue, which is the impact of COVID-19 on the travel and tourism industry worldwide. First is the tourism in Malaysia. Tourism directly and indirectly boosts Malaysia's economy. Malaysia's third largest GDP contributor is tourism. Tourism generated 12 billion ringgit for Malaysia in 2020 and employs 3.1 million people. COVID-19 reduced Malaysia's overseas visitors by 83% to 4.3 million in 2020. 60% of overseas tourists were European before COVID-19. Next, I will discuss about the impact of COVID-19 on global tourism sector. In April and May, overseas travel was restricted due to March coronavirus restrictions. Due to this, foreign visitor arrivals have fallen behind the previous year by roughly 60% during the first 5 months of 2020. Moreover, in the tourism sector, there is a high hotel cancellation rate during COVID-19. Tourism's hotel industry was harmed by aviation's downturn. More than 170,000 hotel room reservations were cancelled, losing roughly 68 million. Pandemic cancellations affect hotels and resorts. Industry must adopt SOP since current circumstances threaten all revenue streams. Next, as seen in the graph, Malaysian hotel occupancy dropped from 60% in 2019 to 25% in 2020. The decline was 35% of the total. Salaries also decreased hotel occupancy in our nation. Since the MCO was declared and enforced by the government, employees must work from home until the employer reduces pay and retrenches them. After the MCO announcement, occupancy rates dropped further. Thus, hotels must follow SOPs to prevent COVID-19 from spreading. Next, I will discuss data related to the issue, specifically AirAsia Company. The shutdown severely impacted AirAsia's Malaysian domestic flights. Due to the pandemic, this is a major factor for passenger decline. This affected the corporation greatly. AirAsia Group Berhad's passengers dropped 85% to 1.91 billion in the third quarter of 2020 from 13 million in the same period previous year. AirAsia has made a loss for 6 consecutive quarters. The revenue decreased from 2.73 billion to 2.31 billion. AirAsia reports that COVID-19 and other concerns have affected its operations. This disease will drain their financial resources. Next is the profit and loss for the first 3 quarters of the year 2019 to 2020 for AirAsia. AirAsia Group Berhad lost 803.85 million in the first quarter ended March 31st, 2020. AirAsia Group Berhad reported a net loss of 992.89 million for the second quarter ended June 30th, 2020. And AirAsia Group Berhad lost 851.78 million in the third quarter of 2020. Other than that, suspend payments to AirAsia. According to the Nikkei Asian Review, AirAsia lowered remaining staff salaries by 75% in 2020, up from 50% in 2019. This indicates a 25% increase from 2019 to 2020 to save the airline from the coronavirus pandemic. Lastly, AirAsia retrenched employees. AirAsia laid off 2,400 workers due to passenger decline. Tan Sri Tony Fernandez said their workers built a fantastic business, but the airlines must cut people to survive the economic crisis. The airlines expected the COVID-19 pandemic to make recovery difficult.
Assalamualaikum to Zatul. My name is Nurishura binti Muhammad Rizwan, and I will continue with discussion in any newspaper that is related with our issue. The conclusion that we may reach after conducting some research on the newspaper that we have produced is the travel and tourism sector had developed into one of the most prominent sector of the world economy before COVID-19. In our opinion, nations with significant tourism industry will likely be impacted by the crisis for a lot longer than other economies. This is so because a nation's primary sources of income is tourism. From our perspective, the movement control order issued by our Prime Minister in response to the pandemic is a successful measure against COVID-19. Malaysia had implemented quarantine and travel restrictions at the start of the COVID-19 outbreak. But due to a persistent rise in COVID-19 cases, the movement control order was finally implemented on March 18, 2020, requiring the closure of all businesses aside from those that provided necessities like food and shelter. In addition, we can observe how our government is making a great effort to protect our tourism sector throughout the COVID-19 outbreak. For instance, low-cost airline Capital A is providing 6 million discount seats to local and foreigner locations. The airline's Big Sale program offers discount fares for flights to various locations as well as complimentary flights, subject to certain restrictions to Kuala Lumpur, Langkawi and Pulau Pinang. Even though the business encountered some issues during COVID-19, they still ran a promotion to draw customers and serve the travel and tourism sector. We see the importance of the government standard operating procedures as early identification and segregation of suspected COVID-19 patients. Aside from that, we concur with the government's decision to punish individuals who disobey the rule. Therefore, in addition to the indirect effect of spreading COVID-19, there will be serious repercussions if employers don't follow the standards. Who fail to follow the SOPs may be subject to fines of up to RM50,000, jail up to 6 months or both. We see that the SOP was successful in aiding our nation's recovery from the COVID-19 outbreak.
To conclude, the tourism industry in Malaysia is seen as one of the most important economic sectors due to its enormous contribution to the country's economy. This is because tourism is currently one of the largest industry in the world. Furthermore, Malaysia is focusing on developing its tourism industry to ensure that its economy is both competitive with and superior to those of other countries. Additionally, one of the most directly impacted industry by the current economic crisis is tourism, which necessitates both short-term and long-term rehabilitation measures. Furthermore, even if the industry has previously recovered from similar crises, the severity and scope of COVID-19 effects on tourism and the economy make a speedy comeback improbable. Last but not least, to achieve a long-term and inclusive recovery, efforts are being made to assist tourism firms which have been badly damaged by the pandemic.